I need to say two very quick things before we begin. First, obviously, there will be major spoilers in this video. If you're still playing through Elden Ring and do not want quest lines and end game content ruined for you, bookmark this video and come back to it later. Second, I encourage everybody watching this video to read the comment section and look for any criticism or alternate theories people may have. This game has only been out for a month, and even the most hardcore theorists are still trying to piece the story of this game together, myself included. Almost everything I say in this video will be backed up by item descriptions and in-game dialogue, with only one or two bouts of speculation. With those two things out of the way, I will now discuss something about Elden Ring that appears to only have minor significance, but in reality, might permanently alter our collective understanding of the story. I refer to two things: the dragons we see throughout the game, and this thing called the Crucible. In case you didn't notice, the Crucible is referenced by various weapons, armor, incantations, and other miscellaneous items. In order to wrap our heads around some of the more mind-blowing details that I will reveal later in this video, it is necessary to understand what the Crucible is. In short, the Crucible is the Erd Tree in its primordial form. This definition comes from the items known as Siluria's Tree, the Crucible Axe Helm, and the Godskin Noblehood. The definition of primordial is something that exists at or before the beginning of time. So, before the Erd Tree took form, it looked like the Crucible. But what does the Crucible look like? Well, it's hard to say, given the descriptions from the following three incantations. According to the aspects of the Crucible breath, horns, and tail, the Crucible was a place where, quote, all life was once blended together. Now I ask you, what does all life blended together look like? I imagine it would be about as easy as trying to cut and paste every web page on the internet onto one canvas. It can't really be done, right? Well, maybe. The concept of the Crucible, of a universe before the universe came into being, has been speculated about since time immemorial. I imagine if you tried to picture the universe before it came into being, when all life was mixed into one seed, you would picture a void of nothingness. As some of my regular followers know, the ancient alchemists had a term for this pre-universe state. They called it the prima materia, the dark void from which the universe emerged. Keep those two words in mind, because I will be referring back to it at the end of the video. In respect to Elden Ring, I argue that while we may or may not see the Crucible in-game, we do see a reflection of it. I refer back to the previously mentioned aspects of the Crucible. Each of these three incantations, the Breath of Fire, the Horns, and the Tail, are described as manifestations of the Erd Tree's primal vital energies. Let me ask you all this. What type of creature has horns, a tail, and breathes fire? Better yet, what type of creature existed in the age before the Erd Tree, just as the Crucible did? Obviously, that would be a dragon. While the Crucible and the dragons share these three traits in common, there is a fourth trait that bears more overall importance to this discussion. That trait is immortality. According to the item description for the Dragon Scale Blade, ancient dragons were immortal on account of their gravel stone scales. If dragons are immortal, or at least the ancient dragons and not the modern ones, I think it's reasonable to infer that the Crucible, which birthed the dragons, possesses that same trait. After all, how does one destroy the source of all life? How would you kill the void? Before I discuss the relevance of immortality in regards to Elden Ring's story, I need to reference the core argument I put forward in my first Elden Ring Mythology video. In that video, I argued that Elden Ring shared the same universe as FromSoftware's other major franchise, Dark Souls. I won't go into the core argument of that video for the sake of time, but I will reference one of the pieces of supporting evidence I provided. Both Dark Souls and Elden Ring feature immortal ancient dragons, ones that were worshipped in both games for not only being immortal, but because they might provide humans with a pathway to immortality. In fact, there were characters in both Dark Souls and Elden Ring that were so desperate to achieve immortality that they attempted to transform their mortal flesh into the flesh of an immortal dragon. In Dark Souls 2, this was the chief goal of the character of Aldia, Scholar of the First Sin. He engaged in several grotesque experiments where he attempted to merge human flesh and dragon flesh together. If you wish to view all the evidence for this, please check out my video titled The Hidden Secrets of Dark Souls, Alchemy and the Ancient Dragons. In Elden Ring, there is plenty of evidence that the denizens of the lands between attempted the same type of merging. The description for the malformed dragon helm says, quote, "After the great ancient dragon Grandsax attacked, the sentinels had an epiphany. The only way to truly protect the Erd Tree was to become dragons themselves." The description for the dragon halberd says that, quote, "The dragonkin soldiers never attained immortality, and perished as decrepit pale imitations of their skyborn kin." This confirms one of the theories I put forward in my first Elden Ring Mythology video, where I said that the boss, known as the Dragonkin Soldier of Noxtella, was an attempted merging of mortals with dragons. As for how this merging would be accomplished, that is unclear. Maybe one would have to offer a dragon scale to an ancient dragon, as the dragon scale item description from Dark Souls 2 said you should. Or maybe you would have to make contact with the Crucible itself, as the Misbegotten did. The description for the winged Misbegotten ashes says, quote, "The Misbegotten are held to be a punishment for making contact with the Crucible. Given the fact that the Misbegotten have tails and some of them have wings, I think it is reasonable to infer that they came into contact with the Crucible and gained some of its aspects, though that is not confirmed." Aside from the Misbegotten, however, there were two other examples of mortals trying to attain immortality. These are the denizens of Volcano Manor and the demigod that they served, Rykard, the Lord of Blasphemy. According to the item known as the Remembrance of the Blasphemous, Rykard took the form of a giant serpent that he might devour, grow, and live eternally. His followers, either willingly or unwillingly, tried to do the same thing, becoming man-serpents. Now, of course, some of you might say that serpents are not dragons, and that's true, but I would argue that serpents are not far off from dragons, and there are many reasons to believe this. Note how the statues seen throughout Volcano Manor depict serpents with wings growing from their backs, suggesting that serpents are the precursor species to becoming a dragon. If we accept the possibility that Elden Ring and Dark Souls share the same universe, then we can use several aspects of the Dark Souls games to help confirm this interpretation. The covetous serpent rings from the Dark Souls series suggest that a serpent is an imperfect dragon. The existence of man-serpents in both Dark Souls and Elden Ring also suggest that serpents precede dragons. But now we must ask why. Why is there this omnipresent pursuit of immortality from serpents and dragons? I will offer up a possible reason, but before I do, I will inform you that I will no longer be referring to item descriptions for the rest of the video. What will follow is mostly speculation, though the speculation will be grounded in events that happen in the game. The ongoing theory in the Elden Ring fan community is that the Elden Ring itself governs the natural law of the lands between. The natural law of death became an impossibility in the lands between, due to Queen Marika removing the Rune of Death from the Elden Ring and giving it to Malekith. The inability to die in the lands between brought about several problems, much in the same way that Lord Gwyn's prolonging of the Age of Fire in Dark Souls brought about several problems. Gwyn wished to permanently stave off the Age of Dark, just as Marika wished to permanently stave off death. Those that did not help prolong the Age of Fire or agree to Queen Marika's rule were cast out. What Gwyn and Marika did not realize is that both death and the Age of Dark were necessary in order for existence itself to function properly. To have life without death, or light without darkness, is an impossibility. One cannot exist without the other, even if the other is unknown and frightening to us. It is the player character's task in both Elden Ring and Dark Souls to either maintain the current order or overthrow it. In Elden Ring, you can choose to become Marika's new consort and further her will. Or, you could overthrow her will. You could reinsert the Rune of Death into the Elden Ring. Or you can replace the Rune of Death with the Mending Rune of the Fell Curse. Or, you can reintroduce something else that was sorely lacking from the lands between. Something that was locked away, deep beneath the capital city of Leyndell. Just as death was locked away to ensure eternal life, chaos was locked away to ensure eternal order. The concept of order, according to the item known as Elden Remembrance, was incarnated in the game's final boss, the Elden Beast. But just as light cannot exist without darkness, order cannot exist without chaos. I argue that this chaos took the form of the frenzied flame. Just as the two fingers communicate the will of the concept of order, the three fingers communicate the will of the concept of chaos. As for what the exact will of chaos is, the character known as Hyetta divines that will from the three fingers.
All that there is came from the one great. Then came fractures, and births, and souls. But the greater will made a mistake. Torment, despair, affliction, every sin, every curse, every one born of the mistake. And so, what was borrowed must be returned, melted all away with the yellow chaos flame, until all is one again.
Chaos, incarnated in the frenzied flame, views the existence of torment, despair, and affliction to be a mistake of the greater will. In order to right this mistake, Chaos wishes to bring all of existence back to a primordial state known as the One Great, a state that mirrors the Crucible. It is only when this happens that, supposedly, the greater will can try again, birth a new world tree from the void, from the prima materia, from the Crucible. Whether that tree is an arch tree from Dark Souls growing up from Ash Lake, or an Erd tree from Elden Ring growing up from the Crucible, is up to the greater will. If you would like to learn more about the nature of the Crucible and its resemblance to the Abyss from Dark Souls, please check out my video titled The Hidden Secrets of Dark Souls, The World Soul. I will leave a link to that in the description box below. If you like this video, please give it a like. It's free, easy, and helps me out a lot. Please subscribe if you want to see more in-depth gaming content, including more Elden Ring videos. Finally, if you want to see more in-depth lore analysis like this in the future, please consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar. You can find a link to both of those once again in the description box. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay yellow.